Who here prepared an umbrella today? What? Wait, we're crypto people and there's only one person who care about the security? Who here do not have an umbrella? Okay. Cool. Raincoat. Oh!
I just love liquidity.
Oh my god, yes, let it rain. Exactly. We love liquidity. We don't mind. Yeah. And this is exactly how I think a panel should be. It should be a conversation. And so I have questions prepared, for the panelists, but feel free to interrupt me if it's a shit question. Feel free to do whatever. Starting with the intro again, you already know me. My name is Zhixi, or you can call me Z. I work for Bob. I'm the senior product and BD strategist. I'm also one of the founding members. And today we have a panel about Bitcoin interoperability. We have an amazing guest panel here, so I'll just pass the mic to Matt to start with the intro.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. My name's Matt Crack. I am the head of developer relations at LayerZero. We are one of the leading interoperability solutions between both EVM and non-EVM chains. So happy to get into this discussion and talk a little bit more about BTC-Fi. Yeah, thank you.
GM, I'm Dao Sasha. I'm hired in BT at 1inch. 1inch is started as DeFi aggregator. Now we're stepping into liquidity AMM world as well. I'm happy to be here and discuss something related to Bitcoin because I haven't started yet. I hope I will learn something from the panelists here. Thanks.
Hey everyone, I'm Andre from Li.Fi. I'm the head of DeFi there, and for anyone who doesn't know, Li.Fi is a routing protocol that basically does aggregation of chains, bridges, DEXs, intent-based bridges, solvers all into one API, and we offer this API to, the biggest wallets or the biggest front ends. I like to give the example that if you ever done a transaction in DeFi, it is very probable that you've used us as the underlying provider, either in MetaMask, on Jumper.exchange, Phantom Wallet. So we're all over the place.
Or us over there.
Hi, I'm Christian. I'm the Director of Products for Growth at MetaMask. I lead our rewards initiative. We also have MetaMask Card in my group. And I've worked on network expansion in the past and excited to be here because we're actually launching native Bitcoin support next week.
Woo!
Woo!
This is such an exciting time, and I am so honored to be in this panel with you guys because, for a little bit of context, we have been speaking to MetaMask team since the very beginning of our chain, since we're an EVM chain. And knowing that MetaMask is going to support Solana and Bitcoin, which are two non-EVM chains in the most popular wallet, has been I think it changed the landscape a lot. And also with 1inch, I think interesting stories. We actually get our developers together to join the 1inch hackathon that happened recently. And I remember your teammates were like, do you guys want to sponsor? And we're like, no, we want to hack because we want to bring Bitcoin into 1inch. So I want to maybe open up the floor here. What is your protocol currently doing with Bitcoin? What are the challenges? What's your standpoint? Do you already do something with it or not? And what are the reasons for it?
Yeah, great question. LayerZero currently works with some of the largest asset issuers that are working with BTC. So, for example, we work with BitGo directly. For WBTC, they're using our omni-chain fungible token standard. We're live across, I think, 15 or 20 different chains. Same for LBTC by Lombard. Same for SolveBTC. An interesting thing happening right now is I was just actually at StarkCon earlier today. LayerZero is going live on Starknet in the next couple weeks. As part of this system, we're helping launch BTC-Fi as well on Starknet. So they have an integrated vault solution that will let you bring WBTC, LBTC, SolveBTC from any chain into Starknet and then get the receipt token out, basically, if you want, for depositing in their vault. So very just interesting, I guess you said interoperability and kind of chain abstraction happening there. But yeah, we'll let the rest of the panel go on.
We step into the cross-chain world not that long. And the reason why is that, for sure, to improve the user experience of the swaps for the users. We started from the most comfortable for us area, which is EVM, where we're gathering the most of the market share. But then the solution that we developed is basically self-custody and chain agnostic. We following a little bit different approach that Li.Fi does, and we actually are part of Li.Fi as well. But why we are not following the bridges approach is that we're always caring about the security, and we have a joke from our founders: if someone is developing the bridge, you can bet when it will be hacked. So it's just a matter of time. So that's why atomic swap solution is basically something that we are following. So the cross chain is first self-custody, second is chain agnostic. That means that after the launching the EVM, anyone in the DeFi world can basically develop this solution and deploy it on top of their chain, and your solution, you're basically hack. And that's why we actually did this hackathon. We wanted to build the most and the biggest cross-chain, chain agnostic self-custody solution in the DeFi, and we did it, we tested, and then we basically step by step. We actually never thought that it will be such big, that popular. So that's why we couldn't basically even, start implementing that amount of the solution that got developed. So step by step, we're going to add it, but because it's complex and it's not contain any bridges, and we don't have a proper product structure, it takes some time, but we will follow this approach. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, we have Bitcoin, and we've been super big fans for years now. We probably added one thing that you have to understand about Li.Fi is that we're demand driven. So we go wherever the demand is, and obviously Bitcoin is one of the highest assets in terms of asks from the community, and also on the B2B side. So all the big wallets are asking for Bitcoin. MetaMask just announced that they're gonna do Bitcoin. So we are driven by that. We do serve Bitcoin routes for I think over a year and a half now. We are seeing a lot of flows. Something that I can say about the flows is that they're more institutional than that they're retail focused, which, I don't have an opinion if that's good or bad. That's probably normal given the price of Bitcoin. But it's for sure super bullish, and we're always trying to add more routes for Bitcoin because we see the demand out there in the market.
So yeah, speaking from the MetaMask side, not being a protocol, but being a consumer facing product, interestingly enough, for certain Bitcoin layer 2 solutions, right, that are EVM based, we've supported them for a long time, right? Like Rootstock being one example. But for a long time, never dipping outside of EVM support, nothing outside of what's Ethereum based. And then it was about a year and a half ago that a project started internally to figure out how could we support Bitcoin in MetaMask. And it actually started before we were implementing Solana. And then realizing that there were a lot of fundamental changes that needed to be made to MetaMask, all the way up and down the stack to be able to support Bitcoin. And even things like being able to support multiple Bitcoin address types, right? And now, we're launching with native SegWit and Taproot out of the box, right? But also implementing BIP44, which is a standard that Trezor had pioneered many years ago, right? To be able to have multi-chain accounts and, essentially when you want to move assets between, Ethereum and Bitcoin, or between Solana and Bitcoin, you can do that all in one account. And we abstract to some degree the underlying address formats and everything. But yeah, it's really interesting because there's been wrapped Bitcoin products on EVM networks for a while. There's wrapped BTC and CBBTC and those kinds of things. But users want native Bitcoin on the actual Bitcoin network. And so, it's going to be really exciting to see. I think, a lot of users will be converting to buying and holding Bitcoin, way more than they ever did with wrapped Bitcoin on any Ethereum networks.
Yeah. So I want to echo on the things that you just said. When you mentioned how before there was no non-event support, but people were trying to figure out a way to do it. We're actually one of the examples because there was the MetaMask Snap, if you remember. And Snap is basically kind of for people who don't know, it's kind of like a plugin on how you can download a plugin on your browser to support features that's not already supported on the browser. So people can build Snap that goes on top of your MetaMask wallet. And we built a snap when Ordinal became a thing to support like the transfer of inscriptions. Also, that was based on another snap another team was building. Because back then we are an EVM rollup, but we want people to also monitor their Bitcoin portfolio. How do we do that? And that's where the MetaMask Fox Snap came about. And when it comes to 1inch, you mentioned how like bridging is a very risky solution because the moment that you build a bridge, you become a target. That's why intents makes sense because you don't lock up liquidity. Instead, you rely on solvers and move capital where it needs to be. And one of the things that we have been building the Bob Gateway is an intense bridge between native BTC and the Bob chain. And from there, we actually released a product leveraging LayerZero technology last month, where the intense bridge carries BTC to Bob, and then we use LayerZero burn and mint to bring that WBTC to all the assassination chains who also adopted OFT standard for WBTC. So that's a very quick one. Do we have anything we want to add here?
I'll follow up pretty quickly. I think what's very interesting about all of the services that the rest of the panel mentioned is that there are lots of different ways that people are trying to solve the problem of being a custodian of Bitcoin, whether it's a centralized solution or a decentralized service, whether it's a chain themselves that are having validators custody Bitcoin and using that as a way to represent it on chain. From the LayerZero perspective, the thing that's been most interesting, I think, within BTC-Fi is that there are so many different solutions to ultimately try and bring Bitcoin liquidity at scale on EVM and non-EVM networks. The challenge that everyone mentioned up here is how do you actually get native Bitcoin onto these different EVM chains? For LayerZero, for context, we support 150 plus networks on mainnet, which is crazy to me to even think about right now. And it goes to show you the challenge of liquidity fragmentation against all these different networks. So one thing that I think would be interesting for maybe us to go through is, like DeFi composability. Thinking about how do you take Bitcoin for either an institution or a DeFi developer and make it where it's easily composable such that you can build applications that use Bitcoin either as the asset of record, right, on a loan, on debt, on lending, staking, things like this. I think that the only way this is solvable is with creating solutions that make it safe to deposit Bitcoin on one side and know that it's usable within your EVM or non-EVM workspace.
I know. Okay, cool. So we talked a lot about Bitcoin, but I definitely want to touch on like the interoperability side of things, which is a question I personally is very curious about. When there are so many players in the interop game, we're now seeing very crowded competition, not limited to Bitcoin, but like there's so much like fee subsidy. There's like we're always competing on speed and fee. And a lot of people are saying, okay, is this a race to zero? Like, how do you guys see, like building a sustainable business model? Someone like for you guys is sustainable because I also want to hear from, a adopter, like an aggregator side of things. Like, how does it work? How do you maintain the business model when, when everyone is competing on fees with interoperability?
Yeah, sure. I can start. We're aggregating bridges. We're aggregating DEX aggregators. Some of them, not all of them, but most of them are actually applying the fee on top of their routes. So now we are in the position of sorting those routes based on the, best path, the cheapest one, and also the fastest one. So we're always trying to balance all those things out. And we do show to the user the cheapest route. Now, how we make money on our side, it's all about distribution. And it kind of is a race to the bottom, or it used to be. Many of our, pure direct competitors have pivoted to something else. So, we could argue that maybe bridges are our competitors, but in a way they're our partners. So, there are, cases in which we have for distribution because we are agnostic to, any bridge. We don't bet on winners. We don't pick winners. We just want to offer the best price execution to the user. So how we make money is that we apply a fee on top of the routes. Now, when you have a lot of distribution, you can apply a fee on top of the route. We just started recently to play with fees because, 2-3 years ago, there was absolutely no room for a fee. We were just in the volume game with, with LayerZero, with 1inch, everyone was in the volume game trying to grab and expand as much market as possible. Now, there are a few players who kind of have the market leadership. So it is a bit easier to play around with fees. But all in all, I don't think it's a race to the bottom because there will be, a few companies that will win and it will offer a service that weren't paying a fee for.
I can, so we started as a B2C product, community-driven B2C product that provide the best roles for the user. And we are following this approach and we will follow this approach on our front end. So if you go to swap on 1inch, we want to make sure that users doing this with the best rates. So we're not charging users, not basically in our DF. Before the B2B solution happens, because we receive the request from the different wallets that basically, hey guys, we want to have the best rates for our users as well under the hood. Same that Li.Fi is actually doing so. Then we develop this developer portal where we have different APIs, which is the swap API is this Flagman, and the cross-chain API is one of them. And we have a different business model where, depending on the level of the B2B business, we either provided it for free because we came from this hackathon, we want to support builders, so some of them are getting this service for free and then they are like doing with this whatever they want. The second thing is for the lower tiers, there is a subscription model where we're just charging the flat fee monthly for the using services. And there is this third level for the bigger clients where we already kind of here for the business and we're just sharing the revenue in a different business models. I want to tell you which one it always, as Andre said, depending on the dedicated business, whether they're located, or the infrastructure, if it's US is one side, if it's some APAC region, it's a different side. So we're always very flexible on the model. But this is applicable, and we're not adding the fees, but we're doing basically we're getting the fee from the partner. So it's, I don't know if it's Trust Wallet, if it's Binance Wallet, for example, or when it comes to the Binance Wallet, for example, there are a couple of basically businesses that are not even charging at all the fees. So we actually. Again, we want to play the volumes game. We're not charging and we just want to get the volumes to keep the leadership in the market. So sometimes we're just just providing the service and have still the users there. That's kind of high level it, depending on very flexible builders model, I would say.
Yeah, it's like you have a product that's serving builders of different type. All kinds.
Yes, and now we're getting ready for the institution world, and this will be completely different, but basically platform with the compliance, with the verification, with KYC, which is not really builders, basically DGen related.
Yeah.
But in this market, institutions are ready to pay. They are caring not about the TVL. They are caring not about, the volume. They're caring about the stability of the service, about the stability of the support, about basically stability of the tech and the compliance part. So this and they're ready to pay for that, and it will and this is completely different business model for that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because a lot of the complaints that I hear from like non-crypto native companies when you talk about Web3 adoption is they feel like they're not a lot of the Web3 protocols or companies don't have enough of the culture from the traditional business world, and this is exactly the kind of professionalism that we need. I guess for LayerZero and MetaMask, I have a slightly different question because maybe starting from MetaMask, from Christian, where because you guys, I know that for you guys, you generate revenues on top of like swaps or in-wallet transactions, right? Like, how do you see this going? Like, what is kind of like the business perspective? Do you see this like in-wallet transaction becoming more and more of a more volume than people actually going directly to those dApps and connecting? And how do you see like what is the interoperability side of the business for you guys?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about swaps, right, and any sort of like trading driven business is, yes, it can be a lucrative business, but it's also cyclical and it's at the mercy of the market, right? So, uh, with swaps, right, like when the market is doing well, it can be a large revenue driver. When the market does poorly, it really, doesn't drive much revenue, right? And that's not good for a business, right? So, in long term, what I see happening is, and it's something that, we're thinking about at MetaMask, but I think you'll see this across a lot of wallet and products and, consumer crypto products in general, is moving away from just being, just doing revenue based on trading products and moving more into more sustainable, like, stablecoin yield, lending, credit, things like that, right? And so offering things that have a broader market application and also allow people to engage with financial products on chain. They're not as speculative. And, the fee model is simpler, right? But there's actually a larger audience that can engage in those products and the revenue is way more consistent, right? And so that's, and it's interesting because you were asking about like protocols as well. We at Consensus also have a layer 2, it's Linea, and we've been, Linea also has a consortium and they're working with, Status and ENS that are also launching chains built on it. And Status is actually launching a layer 2 network that doesn't have gas, right? So instead they have this, everything is sponsored and they're actually doing like on-chain yield products where instead of monetizing just from fees, which is a race to the bottom, right? Everybody wants lower fees. You can't really use that as an extractive model. They want to monetize on people putting stables or engaging in DeFi products at the protocol level and then using that as the primary way that they monetize it. Again, it's really way more sustainable, because like you said, everything, if you're charging on fees, there's always this tension of people want faster execution and lower fees, and that's not really where you can extract, or where you can really monetize and get your revenue from.
Yeah, I think probably to expand on that too, with interoperability, just a quick, I guess, show of hands, who's heard of the blockchain trilemma, right? Yeah, most of us. I think Interop has a similar trilemma right now where there are tons of interoperability solutions in market right now, but they all make trade-offs based around decentralization, capital efficiency in terms of speed, and capital efficiency in terms of cost. And for most of these services, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Actually, LayerZero is as a protocol built around the idea that different businesses, different protocols are going to try and meet different user assumptions about what they need to give to ultimately their customers at the end of the day. And I think that from maybe a Bitcoin perspective, there are a lot of different ways that you can look at Bitcoin ownership and Bitcoin transfers cross-chain, whether they're, small user-based transfers, whether they're transfers to specific L2s based on incentives, or whether they're market makers needing to rebalance, billions of dollars of Bitcoin across different EVM and non-EVM networks. To date, we've moved around $190 billion of value cross-chain. And I think the reason we're able to do that is because we create a protocol that is effectively stateless. We don't tell you what validation logic you need to use for your bridge. We're more of bridge infrastructure as a service for contract builders. And ultimately, we've seen lots of different types of interop spin off on top of that protocol. So it's been very interesting to see what develops, but I ultimately think we're going to see a new vector kind of form as well around scalability, right? With intents, I think there's a fundamental limit of how much capital you can move in a decentralized way with intents, and there's always going to be rebalancing between chains. So there's a question of how do we as a industry solve for that effectively with decentralization. I think it's to be seen, what the future holds for that.
Yeah, I'm personally super bullish on the recent acquisition of Stargate from LayerZero. Yeah, I can't wait to see how this rolled out. I guess I'm gonna go into a more fun question here and a little bit more personal. Just you don't have to represent your team, but just as an individual person in this world of DeFi, in an ideal future, let's say 3 to 5 years or even longer, where if there's no, all the technical problems are solved, what do you see as the ideal future for a multi-chain DeFi environment? What would people be able to do? What kind of product would you want to see? Whoever have an idea.
Sure. I mean, honestly, one thing that I would be super bullish on, I don't know who here is familiar with succinct ZK proving. I would love for ZK to get so effective as a proof model that you can just prove blocks in real time on any chain anywhere. From a validation perspective, that would solve the majority of questions that we have about this verification trilemma, but it's yet to be seen whether we can do that, and it's very difficult to do at the pace of DeFi and at the pace of which chains are evolving. So that is something that I personally would love to see happen, but we've yet to see develop the market.
In a ideal future, I don't want to see the product where I can understand that this is crypto product. So basically, it will be, I don't know, Web3 bank, neobank, where we can do all operations with our digital assets, with our crypto, but without even knowing that there is a crypto. This is the ideal future where you just buy land, I don't know, with your BTC, your mem coins, it doesn't matter what. And you don't even think that you have to think about like whether it's cross-chain, which blockchains under the hood, where they have a gas to send the transaction to Ethereum. This is my ideal future, to open the bank, I don't know, Revolut, maybe to have this, like, maybe they will steal some real money on my wallet, but it still will be, but in ideal future, I have all my crypto assets and I can manage them to my relatives. It doesn't matter what, that's hopefully will happen in 5 years, guys. Let's work on it, please.
I mean, we're working on it, all of us here, but I mean, I just think that incentives are not aligned. From the VCs to the end user, liquidity will only get more fragmented. And, you know, like, I think all of us are kind of trying to solve for that because we see a problem that's just getting bigger in the market. You know, we had, you know, initially the L1s, then we had the L2s, and now we have, you know, the L3s. We used to call them side chains or app chains or like the whole dApp chain thesis. So all this just is getting recycled each cycle. So incentives are just not aligned for the end user, which we're trying to solve for that by kind of stitching together all the chains as best as we can. However, there's going to be, you know, a new technology that has, you know, something that we have no idea about, but it's super cool. So now we have to aggregate that. Now we need, you know, a bridge deployment there. We also need a DAG deployment there. So the ideal future is probably what Alexandra just described, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. So I would say that to give an example real quick, right? So you know, when we launched perpetuals trading at MetaMask, we needed to, you know, in order to engage in Hyperliquid, you have to deposit USDC on Arbitrum. So we launched something called MetaMask Pay, and the idea is that it figures out the routes and whatever, you know, changes need to happen, whether it's a swap or a bridge action or you know, essentially funding. It figures out and then guides you through whatever needs to be done to orchestrate USDC landing on Arbitrum so you can do this deposit, right? And it was like the first step of like trying to abstract a clear like goal, right? An intent, and based on that intent, abstract from the other side all of the complexity to get to that outcome, right? And I think similarly, where we're not at yet, but I would really like to get to, is if you have USDC on 10 different chains, right? It's not USDC on 10 different chains to the user. It's just I have this much USDC, and when I want to do something with it, the wallet just abstracts whatever it needs to do to move it around, and it finds, you know, routes that have basically no fees, right? And so I don't really have to think about, oh, I need to keep some USDC on an abstract chain to go and do something there once in a while. I just know that when I want to do something with it, I'm able to do something with it. And then, you know, eventually when we're able to do that, then you have, you know, a AI agent that rebalances your portfolio for you and finds the best yield at any given time, right? And then it's just really like, I have my cash account, I have my crypto assets, right? I have, you know, my various investment strategies, but for the most part, the largest assets that I hold, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, you know, fiat, Solana, whatever, those are just, the complexities are just so abstracted that fragmentation doesn't really affect me as a user, knowing that fragmentation will always be there.
I love that. I feel
What's your dream future?
so. Yes, for my ideal future, something that we believe on. This is probably gonna sound stupid, but like I want Bitcoin experience to be just like EVM experiences, and as a builder ourselves, we don't want to always have to worry about different engineering resources for every new technology. We want very seamless not just user experience, but also developer experience. And business will be able to interact with crypto more easily. I was very inspired 2 weeks ago when I was in New York to learn about how Chainlink now is building a messaging standard for between fiat, like bank and crypto ramps, exactly like how right now we have messaging protocols to connect between chains. So I can definitely see that more often, where interoperability is no longer just defined as message movement between chains, but also message and asset movement between the real world and the on-chain community ecosystem. I think this is an amazing panel. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for the audience to stay. I'm going to hand the mic back to Diogo, our MC, and let's give a round of applause for our panelists.